Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to an episode of my F1 2020 My Team Career Mode, episode number 93 today for the Belgian Grand Prix in Season 5. If you guys did miss the previous one, uploaded a few days ago, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one. A very big episode, really, to be honest, if we really deep it for the rest of the season, because of the season only being 16 races long, and we're well into the second third of the season, with only a handful of races really left. The deficit we've now got to Pierre Gasly and indeed to most of our other rivals in the standings is pretty significant. We come through to Belgium, season break there, so some time to do some activity, kind of build up the team acclaim even more. We're kind of almost back to where we were finally, pre-bankruptcy and all that that stuff that happened in Season 4 essentially. But if we look at the standings, if you did catch the last episode, you'll know, unfortunately, for the first time ever on this game, we had to retire the car due to a mechanical issue with the car. Obviously, it slipped through the net, having a very worn engine. Still really don't know how we actually managed to get through that entire thing, and only just realised mid-race we had a worn-out engine part, and the internal combustion engine, I think it was, just blew out. And so now we've got a massive deficit to Pierre Gasly, and we only have 6 races to go in this season. So we need to be beating Gasly now pretty much every race, and that still may not be enough, because we need to probably go out there and get the top spots, go for the win, go for second, whilst Gasly's down in a P4 or 5, but I just don't know how realistic that's going to be, because you can see everyone ahead of us, Gasly, Leclerc, Sainz, all so consistent. Verstappen and Stroll and Giovinazzi, the drivers around me after that, a little bit more inconsistent. We know Verstappen getting 2 wins for the season, but also looking like he's been nowhere in a few occasions, and the same for Stroll and Giovinazzi. At times, they've been hampered by traffic, but Sainz and Leclerc, they're ahead of us, and they're yet to even get 1 win. Gasly now with 2 wins, because he obviously went on to win that race, which a lot of you guys were commenting below saying, what a masterclass genius strategy from the team to favour him, because I get the engine blowout. We don't know what happened after my engine blowout, but I imagine maybe one of the ways Gasly could have closed up the gap to Sainz and overtook him for the race win was maybe the safety car came out because of my retirement. I don't know. In real life, that would make a lot of sense, and that would be so much worse then. In fact, if I helped him get that win last round. So we very much now are on the back foot. So we have to come into this one and really come out swinging and punching, but that's easier said than done, because we come into qualifying, it's all sunny right now, but there's forecasts for rain on Sunday, so that is another big spanner in the works. With the rain, I think guaranteed pretty much on the way on Sunday, I've compromised the setup. I'm running higher downforce on this setup than I usually would do, so it might hurt us a little bit here on Saturday, but I'm hoping it'll set us up for victory on Sunday. Well, at least we're going to be having to aim for victory every single race now. Whether we get that or not is a different matter. But Q1 at the moment, very peculiar. Some weird slow times from Alexander Albon, Leclerc, Giovinazzi. I mean, both Ferraris, Giovinazzi down there as well, so a little bit odd in the first part. Let's see how this second part goes and see if there's going to be a bit more of a true order to this. I would be surprised if Ferrari were down there. They have been looking pretty pacey as of late. Leclerc obviously had a fantastic recovery at Hungary from driving from, I think it was P11, wasn't it, up to the podium in P3, just behind Carlos Sainz and Gasly on the top step. But here we are then trying to rotate the car, finding it difficult still, even the maxed out cars, getting the nose turn in compared to the AI and getting that exit off that last corner, proving still difficult for me at the bus stop versus the AI, even with the maxed out car. But a shock exit then for the man who was dominating all of last race, apart from the part we didn't see after my retirement. Carlos Sainz, the man yet to get a win this season, the reigning world champion, knocked out in Q2 here. That's a calamity for him. He's going to have to really work hard to come back from that from P11. The Ferraris look a little bit quicker, but Leclerc, yet again, surprisingly, not as quick as Giovinazzi, who a lot of the time looks better than Leclerc, even though Leclerc's been doing the job at the end of the day to consistently get the points finishes at least. And Ricciardo, top of the session, so the Red Bull has the pace. Sainz, I don't know if he got held up in traffic or what, but that's a massive blunder for him, with Ricciardo looking pacey in the second bar qualifying. For us then, into Q3, bit of an issue on traction on the rear end of that first flyer in the top 10 shootout. We do have a second fresh set of soft tyres to use though, but to my surprise, in Sector 1, we hardly gained anything. Sector 2 here, gaining minimal amount of time, maybe about 1/10 on the exit as we go down towards P1, half a tenth really. We lose it then, and into Sector 3, we have a wash of understeer in 4th gear, and we just drive straight off circuit, dipped a tyre into the grass, and it kind of yanked us towards the gravel trap, and that's it. That's game over. I wasn't going to recover from that mistake and going wide. In fact, we actually just firmed it and went even wider into the gravel trap, so I can't improve my lap time. And so the end of it, after all of that, after a pretty slow start, Leclerc does get onto pole position then. May have heard me kind of going at him in his Q2 performance, so he picked up the pace, and instead Giovinazzi now is the one lagging in P8. Lando Norris with a really strong P2, way ahead of his teammate Ocon, who got knocked out in Q2 actually. My teammate and biggest rival in the championship so far, the championship leader by a mile, Gasly in 3rd place. Hamilton surprisingly up in P4, and Verstappen, I didn't even mention it, Verstappen got knocked out in Q2, so a lot of surprises of the quicker team being knocked out in Q2, apart from maybe the McLaren situation there, and then for us, that mistake just didn't help us, but it's still okay, I guess, if you consider that blunder in qualifying. Let's go to the race. As I said, I compromised my setup for a wet race tomorrow, so we, fingers crossed, might have more pace than those around us who didn't compromise usually, so let's go for it. We need to do the business. We need to at least minimum beat Gasly, and then we'll see where everyone else filters out to.
We're in Belgium once again for today's round of the Formula 1 World Championship. It's a race the great Ayrton Senna won 6 times, and in 2019, Charles Leclerc became the first driver to take their maiden win here since Michael Schumacher in 1992. Spa-Francorchamps then, a 4.35-mile tour of the Ardennes countryside, with 9 right corners and 10 left corners, giving us a grand total of 19. Average lap speeds in the dry can reach about 145 miles per hour, but without a significant improvement in these conditions, we won't be seeing anything like that today. Joining us today to oversee all the thrills and spills, it's Anthony Davidson. And great to see you. How are you feeling about the race today, and how are the circuit conditions from what you've seen?
Well, it's looking a bit cold out there, if I'm honest. These tyres have quite a narrow operating window in terms of the temperatures they need to extract the best grip. So with a cold track surface, it's going to be harder to keep those temperatures up, which will lead to lower grip and maybe more mistakes.
Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. Charles Leclerc lines up on pole position, and Lando Norris lines up alongside. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Gasly, Hamilton, the owner driver, and Ricciardo, Albon, Giovinazzi, Bottas, and Daniel Kvyat, Sainz, Ocon, Max Verstappen, and Matsushita, Stroll, Russell, Sergio Perez, and Nicholas Latifi, Aitken, Magnussen, De Vries, and Mick Schumacher. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today?
So, we've got a very interesting start here because there's heavy rain. It says it's very wet in that intro, and the rain icons, if we look at the strategy screen, are indicating usually you go on the full wet tyres, but it looks like everyone's deciding the inters because it looks like the rain's very, very heavy right now, but maybe within 2 or 3 laps, it's going to lower down to enough for intermediate. So the first few laps might be quite treacherous for all of us, but it's easier just to firm on intermediates rather than starting on full wet. So it definitely did look like full wet conditions through that intro to the grid, basically, and especially with the game saying it was very wet, but there we are on inters. 1 stop. There's a chance of dry weather you can see on the very right-hand side on the session forecast, so maybe we have some dry laps at the end, but to be honest, because we've compromised on the setup, we may not actually want the dry, because we may just be that slow as we showed in Q3. Obviously, I know we made the mistake, but we may not have that much pace in the dry, and we actually might, ironically, want it to stay wet, which is kind of weird for me to say, but, you know, that's how much I think our setup compromise did hurt us at a track around Spa, where it's so long, you're on throttle for so long as well with the maxed out cars now. So let's hope for the best with that higher wing setup and go out there and at least try and beat our teammate ahead of us, and then see what we can do against the likes of McLaren and Ferrari and Red Bull. So here we go then to 5 red lights here in Belgium, the start of a very crucial final 6 races in this season. 5 red lights are out and we're underway from P5 on the grid. It's a great launch for us. It's a good launch for Gasly as well. Norris slow, and we get very, very close to both of them, and they pinch us into turn 1. We make contact either side of us. Norris and Gasly didn't see me in the mirrors, it looks like, and we just got a bit of contact. Norris back up into P2. We get up into P3, but on the run down towards Rouge, Gasly, oh, Ricciardo spun out. He's crashed in the wall. We're side by side up the hill with our teammate, and we've had to let off the throttle. It's so difficult in these conditions. It's very very much kind of full wet weather, but we're all on intermediates, and Albon has flown through on the Racing Point car. He tries to make a move on Gasly, instead gets held up and tucked behind our teammate, so we try and re-overtake the Thai Brit. Can we go around the outside? It's going to be, a drift and a half there. Get the Gymkhana full out here around Spa, but we're going to dive through, try and not go too wide, and again with the drifting opposite lock, but we drift our way through back up into P4. But what an exciting start, and it means that Daniel Ricciardo way down the order now with a front wing damage and a massive spin that was into the wall. Amazing scenes there just before Rouge, and his teammate meanwhile, Carlos Sainz, look at the top left as we close up to Gasly, but can't quite find the overspeed to overtake him in a straight line down the Kemmel Straight on this lap. But meanwhile, look at the top left, Sainz with the fast lap of the Grand Prix again on lap 5 now. He's up into P5, so Sainz rocketed up 5 places, and his teammates seemingly gone all the way back down to the last place of the grid. So the Red Bull kind of inconsistency for Ricciardo continues, and Sainz continues to show, despite the Red Bull blunders in qualifying sometimes, he's still got the pace here. I mean, he's the reigning world champion. He's showing why he's fired through. But for us, can we try and fire through and get past Pierre Gasly now? Second time of asking. He goes a little bit deep, and we go to the inside. There's a bit of space to work with. Get a contact made, but we're going to get our arms out and try and force the move through. And again, we're drifting through, going opposite lock, soaring at the steering wheel basically to get the car wrestled in on the front end. But we force our way through essentially. Gasly did go wide to open up that gap, did kind of shut on us. Obviously, he didn't want to just open up the space and give us the room, obviously, being in a decently in the championship, but we've made that work, and we're up into P3. We're looking to try and drop him, and we're chasing after as best we can to Lando Norris. Meanwhile, Gasly now is continuing to struggle here, so Gasly maybe running lower wings than I am, struggling at the moment in this car, and Albon has made a really nice move on the outside, finished it off on the left-hander that was, and it's a great move for the Racing Point car. Obviously, Albon hasn't had the glory that his teammate Stroll's had, but at times he's driven really well, he has, in the Racing Point car, so let's see how that continues on. But for Gasly, it's going further and further back, so just showing you maybe the difference of setup and what a difference it can make, as Gasly now is overtaken down the inside of Blanchimont by Carlos Sainz, who is now up into P4 of this Grand Prix. The Spaniard from P11 on the grid, really showing what he's worth and showing why he's, still, what is it, second or third in the championship, despite not having a win. It's because of consistent driving like this, even against adversity. He's getting into high points now, and he's now chasing after Alexander Albon. And meanwhile, for ourselves on lap number 8, we're showing we have some decent pace as well. Purple second sector, so very much where the downforce is needed. We have got the grip, maybe not as quick in sector 1 and 3, where you need a bit more straight line speed. So you can see how that setup change is really helping us out in this race, and it means we're closing up slowly to Lando Norris. Just a case of, do we have enough of the run with ERS? Is our car quick enough in a straight line without the aid of DRS, obviously, in these wet conditions? Can we actually close up and actually go for a move on Norris? Because we know, remember how quick the McLaren car is in a straight line from the last 2 seasons. But lap number 9, we're going to come in for a pit stop, an earlier pit stop this is, because the scheduled pit stop was lap 11. But I thought, if the intermediates are starting to wear out, and my engineer has constantly told me throughout this entire first stint, the rain is going to let up in 10 minutes, so that's, going to be sooner rather than later. So I'd rather get onto the second intermediate tyre, which everyone's going to have to go to, because there's not enough, the dry period's not coming quick enough that we're going to be able to go on from the first set of inters onto the dry tyres. So everyone's going to have to make one pit stop onto inters anyway, so we may as well come in earlier, get onto fresh inters sooner, and use those fresh inters to try and catch us up to Lando Norris. So new set of inters now, clean air, a lot of clean air, and so we push hard, and so a few laps later, well, eventually when everyone else makes their first pit stops, and there we go, we have closed up. It's not quite enough to jump Norris, but I didn't really think we were going to do that anyway, but it's got us there within 1 second, and now, even without DRS being within 1 second, will just give us that kind of slipstream. Our car is very decent in the tow, I feel. Once we get underneath someone's rear wing, we can gain quite a bit of time, and we're gaining. We have a little half look. Norris a little bit wide, and we have a little look on the inside, like we did with Gasly, but unlike with the move with Gasly, Norris does shut the door completely there, and we're just have to give up. But it's Leclerc then in the lead still in the Ferrari, Norris in second, myself third. Then you've got Sainz, who has managed to get past Alexander Albon. So the Red Bull is now up into P4 properly. Actually, I said he was in P4 earlier. He was actually in P5. So Sainz really recovered quite well. Then behind a load of cars I haven't pit yet, and my teammate is yet to pit. He does now by lap 13, and he finds himself behind Albon in P6. And so we'll see if he can maybe recover in this second stint. But for us, lap number 13 is Valtteri Bottas is now out of this Grand Prix in the AlphaTauri. Haven't seen too much of any of them in this race, but we've got the overspeed to maybe go for a move. We have a little look on the outside, doesn't quite work, and I don't know if we were maybe, I feel like I was a bit tentative there. If I was maybe way more aggressive under braking, I feel like we could have sailed around the outside, but I just felt a little bit tentative on the brakes. Didn't want to lock up, obviously, because if we go wide, we're going to have a calamity, and Sainz is right behind us. So this is becoming not only a three-way fight, a four-way fight, because look at Albon now. I think this is on the very next lap. Albon's closed in. Even Gasly's not too far off, you know. We're all within, you know, 2-3 seconds here. So this is a crucial point in the race where we need to try and get past Norris. But, you know, if we make a mistake, Sainz can be right there. So here we go again, and Sainz actually looks closer to us than we are to Norris, but eventually now, this is what I'm talking about, that toe. Look how powerful we are on the slipstream. We're going to go for a move. This time we do make the large dive. Norris makes some contact with us. We're now side by side on the curb though, and again, massive amount of oversteer, having to go full opposite lock to try and maintain the car on a straight line. And now Sainz has got his nose in, and he's dived down the inside. He's forced us a little bit wide, and look at the understeer we're met with, and so now Sainz is the one attacking us, and he goes round and sails round the outside. We're really quite slow now, has been off-put by that entire situation. The oversteer cooking the rear tyres a little bit, and now we're still side by side with Sainz, and now through, oh my god, through Puon, Albon makes it 3 wide, and he goes on our inside, and now he's side by side with Carlos Sainz. It's all kicking off here in this Grand Prix. Those two now are battling for P3, and we're here sat in P5, just ahead of our teammate, looking for any sort of grip, and it's just not there. The grip is just disappeared on the intermediates. I don't know where it's gone. I've got no feeling on the front end. And now Gasly's barged his way past, and now we're going to be neck and neck. Oh, we come back through, and we find some speed in 8th gear, and we're letting off to give him the room, and we're still side by side now through Blanchard into the bus stop chicane. He's going to be able to dive us, as the AI are very good on the braking in that corner. I still cannot get it correct, but we're able to squeeze him out on the exit, go a little bit wide on purpose, and just force him out and maintain the position. But as I said, trying to overtake Norris, instead making a mistake. I don't know, the tyres just really did not grip in at all, and a reason might be is because it genuinely is drying so quickly now that it's time for dry tyres. I feel like lap 16 it's dry enough for dry, so we're going to come in. I think DRS has even been activated on this lap, which is usually my indication of when it's time for dries, but everyone continues on and enters. But I think what's happened there was I tried to overtake Norris, but at that part of the circuit, as I tried to overtake him, he overcooked it a bit on the rear with the oversteer, and then because the track is at that point where it's that crossover, and we've seen it in the past how great the AI are, because obviously they're computers AI, they're so good at those changeable conditions because they're pin perfect on the throttle, everything, whereas I just couldn't get it correct because we're at that very weird crossover point where it's not really wet enough for inters and it's not dry enough for slick. So maybe that's why we lost so much time and grip with Sainz and Albon into Puon. Whatever the case is, we're now onto a set of soft tyres, and into turn 1, lap 18, 2 purple sectors on that outlap for us, so very, very quick. And it's still a little bit damp out there, so we're trying to stick to the racing line as much as we can, but we definitely got some pace, and we're looking to close the gap on Albon as we get on the curb, and there we go, a little bit slippery on the left-hand side, but we overtake Albon, maybe, just about, because I think he's still there. Yes, he is through Eau Rouge, and now Bradion and Albon is able to re-overtake us. Great racing there though, so close, but the racing point, I mean, look at the straight line speed he has with DRS there as well, obviously aided, but the acceleration he got coming out the pits was unreal down towards Eau Rouge, so that's a little bit worrying in terms of now, remember, we compromise our setup for not these conditions, for those inters conditions. So, as I said, we actually might have wanted it to stay inters. You know, if I gave myself time to recompose myself, I may have, you know, closed back up to them if it continued to be just fully intermediate weather. But because it's this crossover onto dries, we slowed up, and now, even though we've set a purple lap time somehow, I don't really know how, Albon's extended his lead by a second. And so in the lead is still Charles Leclerc and the Ferrari. But look at this. Sainz, we've missed the overtake. It must have happened whilst we're in the pits maybe. But Sainz is now up into second. So he's done P11 to second here in a wet race. And now we've got a dry period where we know how quick the Red Bull can be. We saw how dominant Sainz was. Can he do the impossible? Can he pull this off from P11 to P1 maybe? I don't. He's quite close to the Ferrari, so never say never. And Albon and Norris are quite close, so they might fight. And then Gasly behind us is closing up a little bit, I can't lie. So at the moment, it's not really a great moment for us in terms of race pace. Albon then goes and overtakes Lando Norris, so Albon books himself a podium slot in P3. Norris, after looking so strong in the first part of this race, is down to P4 off the podium, and Leclerc in P1. Well, he's still in the lead, but that gap is shrinking, and that's definitely a little bit smaller than we just saw earlier. And now there's a bit of blue flag traffic, you know, so that could hold up Leclerc even more. I think, you know, Sainz, he's got an okay shot at this. Meanwhile, lap 21 onto the last lap of the Grand Prix, and we are struggling for pace. Our setup is not made for the dry at all, as look at this straight line speed difference there with Gasly. I know we didn't have ERS to deploy across the line. That did not help us in terms of acceleration, but look at this off that corner. Just the way Gasly's able to exit with so much oomph compared to us, it just shows that our setup is just not for these conditions. We're just not made for this. We come back through with DRS. That's going to help us. So could this just be the one bit of straight we need in DRS assistance to hopefully bag us P5 and stay ahead of, crucially, our championship rival and the championship leader, our teammate Pierre Gasly. Meanwhile, though, this is a replay of whilst we were battling with Gasly at turn 1, Sainz, on the last lap of the Grand Prix, eases by the Ferrari with DRS. And he's done it. Carlos Sainz, P11 to P1. His first race win this entire season. The reigning champ. He's taken his first win of the year in very much some style. Some style. Bravo. P11 to P1. Unreal. And for us, we just about do enough to stay ahead of Gasly. It's been a tough race for the team. We've not had the pace as a twosome, but we've not had the pace versus Gasly in the dry period. We did have it in the inters, so we've done well just about to hang on to the P5 and get some crucial points over our teammate. But Sainz, Leclerc and Albon, mega stuff there from the Spaniard though. Driver of the day, and very much deserved so.
So another fantastic victory for Red Bull today. Talk to me, Ant. What was it that set them apart from the competition today?
Well, Crofty, this was won through an abundance of speed and an abundance of skillful overtakes. Inside, outside, cutting underneath, we saw it all today. And it's really nice to see a Grand Prix won in that manner. A race, surely, that will satisfy the purists today, I think.
The drivers are en route to the podium as we speak. What a fantastic win for the Red Bull team. They performed exceptionally today, keeping us firmly on the edge of our seats throughout the entirety of the race. Congratulations to everyone at the team.
So that's made things very interesting. So in the top kind of 4 or 5 fight in the championship, Leclerc now is the only man left to not get a race win this season. And to be fair, with the amount of times he's been in situations where he might get a win and he's got it snatched away, or how unlucky he's been sometimes of being knocked out in Q2, or the Ferrari's just not been in pace at the restart of the season. I don't know. Leclerc, he's got so many P3s and P2s this season. He just seems like he's just not his year to get a win. But somehow he's still there in P3 in the championship. I don't know. There's just a funny feeling that I don't think Leclerc is actually going to end up getting a win. The game just doesn't seem him to want him to get it. But in the lead then, still Gasly. But now the lead is not so sizable. Sainz has closed that to 4 points. So Sainz is definitely back now in this championship fight. And looking at that standings, 5 races to go now. 5 races. And we're 30 points away still from the lead. Yeah, like, yeah, this is gonna be tough. I can't lie. I'm actually now a little bit scared. We beat Gasser, yeah, but it wasn't the big hit of points we maybe needed to bounce back. We are gonna need to, well, minimum, we're gonna have to win another race this season, I think, to get us back in this fight. And that's easier said than done, with the likes of Sainz looking quick, Leclerc looking quick, the racing points. At times, the Mercedes are there. At times, the McLaren is there. It's tough. It's a very, very close season. But guys, if you did enjoy this race, pretty chaotic actually at the start with the rain, and then at the end as well, last lap moves for Sainz and attempted last lap moves with Gasly. Exciting ones. So if you did enjoy, hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're on your around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.